Hey, good Saturday to you. It's time once again for RFD Illinois. I'm DeLoss Yankee.
I'm Rita Frazier. How are you on this fine Saturday?
First Saturday of April. Should feel like spring, right?
Should
feel like spring.
Yes. Maybe?
Ish.
We'll call it springish.
I was talking to Farm Week's Dan Grant Thursday, and he reminded me that it was almost the last Ag Statistics report in April last year. So it was like April 22, and we only had 4% of the corn crop planted, and then it went gangbusters. In 17, we had 30% of the crop planted, but last year there was only 4. It was very wet and very cool, and the grass wasn't growing and all that stuff, and April wasn't fun last year either.
Right. Well, I don't know if you heard Alan Duran say, he would always say this time of year. He's like, well, no matter what, we'll get a crop planted.
Mm-hmm.
No matter what.
It'll get done.
It will get done.
But,
yeah, it's a concern for sure.
Yeah, and, our president, Rich Giebert, he was in Indiana, and he said, talking to all those farmers there, they didn't have any work done. So, weeds and fertilizer and all that stuff, and they didn't get anything done in the fall either, just like we did. So,
right.
And not to mention what's going on in the Western Corn Belt. So this is it's shaping up to be an interesting spring by all means. All right, plenty to come here on a Saturday, RFD Illinois. Stay with us.
Clean water matters to all of us. For years, farmers have been calling for clean water and clear rules because we know it's possible to have both. Now is the time to make your voice heard. Text WATERS to 52886 and support the new clean water rule proposed by the EPA and Army Corps. Don't wait. The 60-day comment period has begun, so text WATERS to 52886. Contact your local county farm bureau for more information on clean water and clear rules.
As you prepare for planting season, remember your neighbors. Whether you're an applicator, grower, or beekeeper, use FieldWatch to register your farm and monitor for sensitive sites around you. FieldWatch is a free, easy-to-use online mapping tool. Consulting FieldWatch is now a requirement for the over-the-top use dicamba products. Communicating with your neighbors will help you protect your farm and the environment. Don't wait. Go online to fieldwatch.com. Growing agriculture, we grow best together.
Welcome back to RFD Illinois on a Saturday. I'm DeLoss Yankee with our Washington correspondent, Matt Kay. And, you have no shortage of stories here, but we'll talk about the border in Mexico. And, that's had some folks concerned earlier in the week.
Absolutely. And, you can hear the screaming as folks consider the downside of closing the border. It would be huge. Catastrophic, DeLoss is the word that we hear used a lot. And we're hearing that from farm folks, automakers, manufacturers across the board. People are worried that President Trump might just take some kind of drastic action. But whether you're talking about a shutdown or a slowdown, the news is not good when you do anything to impede commercial traffic across the border. I understand from American Farm Bureau that 69% of fruit and vegetable trade is done by truck, so that's not good. Many of these commodities you can't just ship by airplane or boat because the cost would be prohibitive. Some of this produce is, much of it is done as last-minute on-time delivery. In other words, it has to be there before it goes bad. So timing is key. Right now, the problem is not so much a shutting down of the border, but a slowing down of in terms of hours of traffic that is trying to get across the border into the U.S. You've got hours-long backups. You've got trucks that can't be inspected very quickly because the Trump administration is redeploying hundreds of customs officers from the ports of entry to parts of the open border. that are seeing a flood of migrants, and that means that some places like the Port of Nogales in Arizona are cutting back hours, shutting down processing of trucks on Sunday. Other ports of entry in Texas are also seeing a shortage of Customs and Border Patrol people that are being redeployed. They're really short-handed and cannot deal very quickly with the amount of traffic that's coming across the border. This is not good news for commerce, and we also understand from Farm Bureau that there's a concern about seasonal labor getting in. The Farm Bureau's president, Zippy DeVal, issued a press release this week that they are very concerned, and some of their states have expressed this, that they might not have the H-2A workers that they need for planting season, fruit and vegetable operations that have to be staffed, and they need that ready supply of Mexican labor. If it's not there, they could be in trouble. So, again, whether you're talking about a slowdown or a shutdown, this is not good news for U.S. agriculture.
Wow. Meanwhile, especially as you go to the Western Corn Belt, you would think that disaster aid would get in the mailbox as fast as possible, but can't agree on that either.
This is the political season, and especially with the House and Senate now controlled by opposite parties, you have difficulty over issues, particularly funding issues. They become very sensitive. The president is now in a fight with Senate Democrats over how much to grant Puerto Rico for Hurricane Maria assistance. There is $600 million in food assistance in the Senate GOP bill that did not pass muster on a procedural vote early this past week. The same happened with a Democratic version that had more for Puerto Rico. The result is that even though the House has passed a bill, that the entire effort to move disaster assistance through the Senate, and we're talking about a lot of money here, $13 billion, including $5 billion for producers' disaster losses, especially in the Midwest, which is still trying to recover from major flooding, that this is not getting done. The majority leader, Mitch McConnell, has reserved the right to bring up the bill again. Maybe the second time will be the charm, but right now, politics seems to be the name of the game, as key disaster aid is now caught in the mud here in Congress.
Quite the week, and much more to come as well. Matt, thanks so much. We'll talk to you next week.
Thank you. Thanks a lot.
Matt K. in D.C. on RFD, Illinois.
You're going to need me.
You're going to need us.
All of us.
You're going to need our technical skills,
our math, our engineering skills.
You're going to need our help with your water, your air, your food.
You're going to need our organizational skills, our problem-solving skills.
You're going to need our determination, our honesty, our compassion.
You're going to need the next generation of leaders to face the challenges the future will bring.
And we promise, we'll be there when you need us.
Today, 4-H is growing the next generation of leaders. Support us at 4h.org.
This is Let's Talk Horses on the RFD Radio Network. I'm Jason Vance. Joining me is Taylor Fabus, an extension educator at Michigan State University and also owner of Horse Shows Are Us. Now, Taylor, tell us a little bit about how Horse Shows Are Us came about.
Sure, I'd be happy to. So I have been a long-time horse show exhibitor since I was a youth all the way up till now as an adult and with my children showing. And through my experiences as an exhibitor, I have seen a large variety of horse show management success stories. As an exhibitor, I've seen some shows that I think have been managed just spectacularly, some that I think that could be improved on. And through those experiences and through my experiences as an extension educator and running our State 4-H horse show, which is a ginormous undertaking, and I've learned a lot. a friend who has followed a similar path in life. We both thought, let's get together, let's put on a horse show of our own, and let's do all the things that we wish other horse shows were doing and have fun while we were doing it. So that's how Horse Shows R Us came about.
Now, what are some of the duties of a horse show manager?
Well, the duties of a horse show manager really vary based on the level of the horse show, the size of the horse show, certainly the location, things like that. But generally, a horse show manager is in charge of staffing the horse show and running the horse show office. So those can be two very difficult tasks to take on. There are a lot of positions that people don't necessarily consider important and vital to a horse show. They kind of overlook the duties such as the person running the in-gate and the out-gate, the ring steward. Those sorts of positions are extremely important, and it's a horse show manager's job to make sure those are filled by skilled people. And then the horse show manager also has to run the horse show office, take entries, certainly the billing and accounting. Now, if you're thinking of being a horse show manager for a breed organization, there are even more responsibilities for that individual. Is for Horse Shows R Us, at this point we just do open shows that we own ourselves. So that gives us a bit more flexibility on what we have to do.
So what would you say is the most important aspect of managing a horse show?
The entire reason that my friend and I decided to create our own horse show was we wanted to create and foster an atmosphere of fun and inclusion. So I think that creating that atmosphere is the most important part of running a horse show. When someone walks up to the show manager's office, they should be greeted with a smile, not as a nuisance that's creating a headache for whoever's in the office. And that may sound like a no-brainer, but you'd be really surprised how often you walk up to the show office and you're not greeted with a pleasantry. So that was definitely one of our biggest goals, was just to help everybody have a great time at the horse show so that they'd want to come back in the future. So I think that's the most important part.
What would you say is the most challenging part of managing a horse show?
There are a lot of moving parts to a horse show. I'm very fortunate that my background has allowed me to see all sides of the horse show, from an exhibitor to a judge to the show manager, from working on breed associations and being on their board. I've seen a lot of different sides of the horse show. So just managing all those moving parts, keeping really good lists on what needs to be done. So I would say that the most difficult part is just understanding how a horse show works. And that only comes with time and experience. So surrounding yourself with knowledgeable people, spending time at horse shows, that's the best way to prepare yourself for taking on a task like this.
I'm sure that managing a horse show can be a very rewarding experience, though.
It sure can. I wouldn't be spending my free time managing a horse show if it wasn't. We've developed a culture through Horse Shows R Us that not only can financially benefit the company, but what we've done at the horse show that we own and run is we've used that as an opportunity to fundraise for local student groups and organizations.
If someone is interested in being a show manager, what advice do you have for them?
My best advice, if you think you want to manage a horse show, is to volunteer at horse shows. As many different types of horse shows that you can, different sizes, different locations. Learn a lot about what are the responsibilities, and those responsibilities vary depending on the type of horse show. Some show managers come in and they solely run the office and entry taking. Others are in charge of running the entire horse show. Spend more time at horse shows would be my advice.
That's Taylor Favis, an extension educator at Michigan State University. She's been our guest on Let's Talk Horses. Thank you so much for listening, and please tune in next time for another edition of Let's Talk Horses.
Hello, America, and welcome to the Ag Resource Livestock Market Watch. I'm Nathan Losey with Ag Resource Company in Chicago. Ag Resource offers daily market updates via email, which feature all the latest market news along with short and long-term price forecasts. Our reports feature in-depth coverage of livestock, grain, and oilseed markets, and also comprehensive farm marketing advice so you can spend less time worrying about the markets and more time focused on your farm or ranch. Go to agresource.com where you can get your first month subscription for just $1. It was another wide week of trade in the hog market, with June hogs opening lower and then surging to strong gains through the week, trading in more than a $13 range. At week's end, nearly all CME hog contracts had marked new contract highs, with July and August hogs each trading over $100. The cash hog market was higher every single day as well and reached a 10-month high of $78. News from China continues to suggest that the hog herds remain in free fall as African swine fever continues to spread, but to date there has not been any confirmation of significant Chinese demand. Export commitments are above a year ago, but far short of the tidal wave of export demand that the CME has priced in. But with no vaccine or cure for the disease, the Chinese hog herd will continue to decline, and a trade deal announcement is likely to be followed by better exports. The cattle futures trade was back and forth, but generally higher through the week. Initial cash sales were a couple dollars lower at $124, but the bulk of the week's business was pushed back as feedlots held out for better prices. The beef market drifted down on seasonal considerations, but typically another rally gets underway by mid-April and lasts into the end of May. Fed cattle supplies will steadily improve as the calendar moves forward, but there's hope that another beef rally could hold prices steady in the mid-120s for a few more weeks. Longer-term livestock traders remain optimistic that a China trade deal will produce strong beef export demand as China looks to replace lost pork production. Until next time, I'm Nathan Losey, and thanks for listening this week to the AgResource Livestock Market Watch.
This is RFD Illinois as we go to markets and weather.
For University of Illinois Extension, I'm Todd Gleason. The weather is next.
From the State Climatologist Office for the Illinois State Water Survey at the University of Illinois Prairie Research Institute, this is Brian Kirshner. The last weekend of March brought an extended period of unsettled weather and locally heavy rainfall to Illinois. The hardest hit regions between I-70 and I-80 received over an inch of rain, with 14 stations reporting over 2.5 inches. The highest total of 2.95 inches was recorded at Mount Olive in Macoupin County. Preliminary data shows that March 2019 finished cooler and wetter than average. The statewide average March temperature was 36.6 degrees Fahrenheit, which is 4.7 degrees below the long-term average. Preliminary statewide average precipitation for March was 4.16 inches, or 1.2 inches above the long-term average. Illinois has seen above-average monthly precipitation since December 2018, resulting in widespread high soil moisture content and an increased spring flooding threat for the entire state. In the near term, we can expect pleasant conditions to begin the weekend, with increasing chances for showers and storms Sunday and into early next week. Temperatures will be unseasonably warm, with forecasts from the National Weather Service calling for lows this weekend in the upper 40s to 60s, with highs in the 60s and 70s. Looking ahead, the Climate Prediction Center's 6 to 10-day outlook is favoring probabilities of below-average temperatures and continued probabilities of above-average precipitation statewide. This is Brian Kirshner from the State Climatologist Office.
And I'm Todd Gleason for ULI Extension. You have a great and a very safe week.
Let's look at the closing numbers for the day and the week with AgriVisor's Dale Dirkholz. A lower close finished the week out, Dale.
You know, the weakness that we had on Friday shouldn't have come as much of a surprise to anyone. You know, after we had the hard break right at the end of last week, we'd pretty much seen the grain prices grind their way higher this week. We had some Chinese news. We had some weather. But we didn't have anything overtly new for the trade to work with on Friday, at least hugely significant. And with that, you know, to expect people to step in there and take some minor profits and come back to play the game again next week should have been anticipated. You know, the weather, which is starting to become more and more important on everybody's radar screen, really hasn't changed much. And in fact, when we look at those 6 to 10, 8 to 14-day forecasts that we had throughout the whole week, if anything, they tended to get a little bit worse. And, you know, even Friday, I haven't seen the late afternoon ones yet, but even on Friday, you know, we were talking about the Midwest being cold and wet with the only nice weather and right along the fringes of the Gulf Coast or maybe the very northern edges of the northern plains. And that doesn't suggest we're going to see planting get underway real fast this year. Doesn't mean anything bad for the crop necessarily. Last year planting got off the mark a little bit slow in April, and when we hit May, weather improved a little bit except for around Iowa-Minnesota border, and crop got in the ground in good shape. But that may have been the game that helped cap those yield potentials last year to a small degree as well. Focus still on China. Still looks like we're going to see an agreement come together. Still got some details to work out yet, and as long as that persists, probably going to keep the game under wraps.
Dale Durkoltz, Agrivisor Services.
For Illinois agricultural leaders, or those who want to be one, this is the week's Best of Leader page. From the Illinois Farm Bureau, I'm Rachel Torbert.
At least 1 million acres of U.S. farmland were flooded after the bomb cyclone left wide swaths of 9 farm states underwater in March. As floodwaters begin to recede, many farmers are facing the likelihood that fields may not be able to be planted at all this year and that recovery may not be possible. Farmers and ranchers are very resilient and will try to survive, said Nebraska Farm Bureau President Steve Nelson, but they might figure out in a year or two that there's just no way to come back from a loss like this. U.S. House Speaker Nancy Pelosi Tuesday said lawmakers could not take up the USMCA unless Mexico passes legislation protecting workers' rights. In an interview with Politico, Pelosi also cited concerns over enforcement provisions for the USMCA. No enforcement, no treaty, Pelosi said. Congressional Republicans and business groups this week warned President Donald Trump of the severe economic damage that could result if he closed the U.S.-Mexico border and urged him to reconsider. Trump has said for more than 2 months that he's ready to close the border, though he's never followed through on the threat. The Trump administration plans to shift much of the power and responsibility for food safety inspections in hog plants to the pork industry as early as May, cutting the number of federal inspectors by about 40% and replacing them with plant employees. Under the new system, responsibility for identifying diseased and contaminated pork would fall to plant employees, whose training would be at the discretion of plant owners. President Donald Trump Thursday said that the U.S. and China were close to a trade deal that could be announced within 4 weeks, while also warning Beijing that it would be difficult to allow trade to continue without a pact. We're getting very close to making a deal, Trump said to reporters at the White House this week. That doesn't mean a deal is made, because it's not, but we're certainly getting a lot closer.
That's the Best of Leader page for this week. I'm Rachel Torbert. You can receive an electronic version of Leader Page Monday through Friday. Just go to farmweeknow.com, click the banner, and sign up to receive the farmweeknow.com daily update, which contains the daily edition of the Illinois Farm Bureau Leader Page.
That'll do it for RFD Illinois on a Saturday.
Hey, we have a salute coming for one lucky town in Illinois.
That's right. Winchester.
Ah, yes.
Scott County, population 1,650.
Hello.
Remember Winchester on MASH?
Yes.
Wasn't he the guy that later moved in with Hawkeye? He was the guy that came in later.
Yes, yes, he was.
And they never got along and
not best friends.
Got into adventures.
Right.
Yeah. Well, we say hello to our folks in Winchester, Illinois. Sponsored by Country. Your farm is your family's legacy and part of your hometown heritage. While you work sun up to sundown to get the job done, we're here protecting the things you love every step of the way. Country Financial. Learn more at countrycrop.com.
I'm Rita Frazier.
I'm DeLoss Yankee. Have a great weekend.